Hi, Leslie Koo here. Today I want to talk about the purchase of China uh, fighter jets by the Indonesian government. The Indonesian government plans to buy about 40 over fighter jets of China, J-10C, and they have submitted to the parliament for approval. Now, why they include the China fighter, jet fighter J-10C in their purchase? Well, you can find the reasons in the internet. I'm not going to cover here. So this video is to cover this weapon purchase and the goodies that this purchase will bring along in the coming months. So let's talk about the weapons itself. It says it's going to buy, or it plans to buy 40 over J-10C from China. But the thing is that I believe it's not just the fighter jets alone. There are other hardwares that they are interested to buy. Okay, in the past, all the fights or the bombing was handled by the fighter jet alone. So the fighter jet took off, reach when the target is within range, launch the missile, and zoom in, hit the target. That's the past. In recent times, it's more sophisticated than that, and because of the complexity, it also makes the the hit rate much higher with more accuracies. So what happens is that there is a targeting system. Okay, of course, the jet fighter, fighter jet, the missile, and the early warning system. So, in a nutshell, the targeting system will lock on to the targets, and then for this case will be the enemy's fighter jets, and the fighter jet will launch the missile, and the targeting system will guide the missile and hit the target. And what about the early warning system? The early warning system will be to warn the pilots where the enemies are on real time, so that the pilots can avoid being struck by the enemy pilots. So this is an overall view. I'm pretty sure it is more complicated, more complex than this, but in general, this is an overall view. Okay, for this weapon purchase, it's not only about hardware. I mean, the Indonesian government is not buying just the hardware, the warning system, the targeting system, the missiles, the jets, the fighter jets. You're actually also buying the relations. This from the foreign policy perspective. Military matters, defense, weapons are very sensitive limits between countries. So if on the defense ground, military ground, if two countries are very close, that will mean that other corporations, the non-military ones, well, will be easier to talk compared to the situations that these two countries are not in that kind of military corporations. Why I say that? Because when you buy the weapons from another country, it is not only just buy and then I use. It's not that simple. You have to send your soldiers, your pilots, to their country, to the seller, for them to be trained, and also other staff, for example, maintenance, the operations. You also need to send them to the seller country to be trained. So this sort of cooperations we actually make two countries much closer compared to some other non-military related corporations. There are many things that they will cooperate, they can do to improve the economics, the politics of the both countries. Of course, there are a lot of benefits. I can't possibly cover all of them, but I will highlight one or two. Now, let's look at the Indonesian side. Okay. Yes, first of all, Indonesia will get the weapons that is advanced, that has improved, the performances have been proven. So that's one thing. Indonesia, because of their closer cooperations or closer tie with the Chinese government now, they can benefit from the expertise of the Chinese government. One of the things at the top of the list, I reckon, is infrastructure. Indonesia needs infrastructure. Especially Indonesia is so huge. Right? From one end of Indonesia to the other end of Indonesia, it takes hours. We are not talking about driving a couple of minutes within an hour. No, it takes hours, maybe days. If you don't have a good infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, it will take a long time. And that also hinder the economic development, economic advancement of Indonesia. So I believe after this, more infrastructure projects will be carried out by the Chinese government in Indonesia. I mean, you can see the Bandung high-speed railway. So more of such projects will happen in the near future. So this is to build not only, I believe, not only high-speed rail, I mean, trains, roads, highway, etc., etc. So with all this infrastructure, this is easier to move or to mobilize people on one side of Indonesia to the other sides of Indonesia. This will create like human flows, good flows, product flows throughout the country in the shortest time possible, and that will revamp or boost the economic growth and the economic development. Because time in terms of economic development is essence. For example, where the parts of Indonesia needs huge labor force to build on certain projects. So with good infrastructure, you can actually transport them from all over the countries to that spot where labor force is needed. So this is one example. That's why I reckon that infrastructure will come. And as you know, or as you can see, China has proved to the world what it can do, what kind of miracles it can do to its infrastructure. So Indonesia is going to tap on that. That's what one benefits that the Indonesian can get moving forward. And another thing, Indonesia is rich, is in natural resources, so it definitely needs a buyer. And China is hunger for natural resources. oil, metal, iron, so on and so forth. And Indonesia is rich in all these resources, and now in front of them, China, who has a very huge appetite for all this. There's another benefit for Indonesia. Okay, we have thought about Indonesia, now on China. As I said just now, Indonesia needs iron, and China has a big appetite. And now we're closer to Indonesia, so there is one option or one supplier for China. Because of the close ties, the risk of Indonesia jeopardize or disrupt the sales of all these resources to China, the risk is very low. The risk is very low. So China, at the very least, secure one major source of its needs for natural resources. So another thing for China that it can benefit from the closer ties with Indonesia is the sea, which is related to the Belt Road Initiative. At this moment, Chinese cargoes, most, if not all, will come down from down Malaysia, go through Malaysia, and then at Singapore, turn to the Strait of Malacca, and then go up to the Bay of Bengal. But because of the geopolitical tensions with its neighbor, China's neighbor, and also its tension with the US, so there is a high probability that all these Chinese cargo ships, after getting out of Strait of Malacca, may be some blockage, okay? And this blockage will demand them, hey, we suspect that there are terrorists on board. They want to come and have a look to check, or we suspect that, or we have information that you are carrying sanctioned products, goods, or sanctioned weapons. So no one wants to have that, right? The Chinese government, the Chinese cargo company, then they won't want to have this kind of risk for their shipments. So what are the options? They don't have to turn to at Singapore into the Strait of Malacca. There is one more option, which is the Yellow Rock. For those ships that can pass through that gap, can go through there. And I'm not saying that those who want to make things difficult for these Chinese cargo ships cannot do that. They can also go there and block them. But the thing is that it's more difficult compared to the area outside the Strait of Malacca. Now, there we'll have more, more space. Because over there is very narrow, right? Over there is very narrow. But here got more space, more ocean space. It's not that easy to send a ship there. You need a lot of all these ships to block, to make things difficult for the Chinese cargoes. So that is one option. And on top of that, and not on top of that, moreover, the area, the Yellow Rock, the area belongs to Indonesia. Of course, there are international waters there, I believe. But, I mean, you can't possibly, foreign ships, naval ships, stationed there and wait for all these Chinese cargo ships. It is not possible. I mean, it cannot be done because Indonesia will make noise. The Indonesian will make noise. So there is another benefit from this closer ties with Indonesia. So in a nutshell, the closer ties between Indonesia and China through these weapon deals, how should I put it, will bring a lot of benefits to both countries going forward. It's when you deal with China from the past projects that the Chinese government have all over the world, it's always like win-win. It's not likely that the Chinese government will slap Indonesian government with pages and pages of fine prints or appendices per page of contract. Okay, that's all for this video. See you in the next one.